It's currently May, and lo and behold, the Athletics stand alone atop the AL West. Now I know what you're thinking. Did the Astros, Mariners, and Rangers all get hit by a meteorite simultaneously? The answer is no. Coming into 2026, this franchise still felt pretty stuck in transition. The Raiders were long gone, and the Coliseum era was basically over. The team was temporarily playing in Sacramento, waiting for Vegas. Attendance conversations were brutal, and baseball-wise, most people still viewed the A's as a rebuilding team with some exciting young hitters, but way too many holes to seriously compete. And to be fair, the concerns were pretty valid. Not too long ago, we saw this team lose 112 games. The pitching staff looked pretty shaky coming into the year, and outside of Athletics fans, I don't think many people expected this much early success. But the thing that surprised people isn't just the record, it's how they're winning. I think a lot of people underestimate how legitimately dangerous this offense is. Adjusted exit velocity is a good way to show who's consistently hitting the ball hard, not just who happened to run into one ball at 115 miles per hour. The way it works is pretty simple. Every batted ball is credited at either its actual exit velocity or 88 miles per hour, whichever is higher. So instead of letting weak contact drag everything down too much, it gives us a cleaner look at a hitter's real top end contact quality. And this is where the A's offense starts to look a lot more real. Nick Kurtz is sitting near the very top of baseball, right next to names like Aaron Judge, O'Neal Cruz, James Wood, and Yordan Alvarez. That's not normal rookie company. Then you also have Shea Langeliers, Lawrence Butler, and Tyler Soderstrom all showing up in the same range. So this isn't one guy carrying the offense. This is multiple ace hitters producing high-end contact. We really care about this because hard contact is one of the stickier skills. When a lineup has this many guys consistently impacting the baseball, the offense becomes a lot harder to dismiss. Nick Kurtz was already one of the most hyped young hitters in baseball coming into the year, but this start has been even better than the A's could have realistically hoped for. And the craziest stat might honestly be the walk streak. He reached base via walk in 20 straight games, tying Barry Bonds for the second longest streak ever. That is absurd company for a 23-year-old hitter this early into his career. He's currently walking 21.6% of the time, which is basically Juan Soto territory. His chase rate is elite, and pitchers are getting him to expand less than almost anybody in baseball, and when they do challenge him, he's smoking the ball. He's 99th percentile in both hard hit rate and average exit velocity, sporting a 16% barrel rate. And you can actually see how pitchers are attacking him now. Fastballs up, breaking balls away, just trying to avoid the middle of the plate completely, because if they do miss, it's damage immediately. And that's kind of what makes him such a problem already. It's not just the raw power, he's forcing pitchers into uncomfortable counts constantly. The craziest part about the Athletics start is that Nick Kurtz might not even be their best hitter right now. And that's because Shea Langeliers has been unbelievable. When people think about the A's young core, Kurtz gets most of the attention, and understandably so. But Langeliers is putting together one of the best offensive stretches by a catcher in baseball right now. He's already up to 10 home runs, he's over a 1,000 OPS, and he's leading the team in hits while catching almost every day. And this isn't really coming out of nowhere either. If you go all the way back to the second half of last season, Langeliers had a 1018 OPS after the All-Star break, so what we're seeing now feels a lot more like a real breakout than some random hot month. The expected stats also absolutely love this guy. Elite barrel rates, elite expected slugging, hard hit numbers all the way up, and he's finally punishing mistakes consistently instead of just showing flashes for a week or two at a time. And unlike a lot of the names around him, he's doing this while playing catcher almost every day and managing a pitching staff that's been pretty shaky basically all season. Because I think the value of a catcher hitting like a middle of the order first baseman kind of changes your entire lineup construction. Suddenly the A's don't have easy outs in the middle innings anymore. And for a team that was supposed to hang maybe below 500 at best, getting this version of Langeliers completely changes the ceiling of the offense. And as you could guess, the lineup doesn't stop with Kurtz and Langeliers, and that's what makes the A's so annoying to pitch against right now. I mean, Lawrence Butler still hasn't even fully heated up yet, and you can already see the tools. The bat speed is ridiculous, and the athleticism jumps off the screen, and when he gets extended, the ball carries differently. Even with the inconsistencies, pitchers clearly respect him. And then of course there's Jacob Wilson, who's honestly off to a bit of a slow start, but he's the exact type of hitter this lineup needed. Not huge power, but he just puts the ball in play constantly. He has a low strikeout rate and good bat control with competitive at-bats. He's really good at keeping innings alive for the bigger bats behind him. Carlos Cortez has also been a massive surprise. Over a 1,000 OPS in limited at-bats, and every time they needed a quality plate appearance lately, he's delivered one. It's one of those random death breakouts that good offenses always seem to get during a season. Speaking of depth, this lineup just doesn't stop. Zach Geloff has quickly become one of the more important players on this team again, which a few months ago didn't look very likely. Following the injuries and struggles the last couple years, his role coming into 2026 was completely uncertain. Instead of trying to force himself back into being the 2023 version of himself, he's adjusted. The swing looks shorter and the whiff rate is down, and over the last couple weeks he's been one of the hotter hitters in the lineup with an OPS pushing 940. But the biggest thing has been the versatility. He's played second, third, and even center field, and suddenly he's turned himself into one of the more useful players on the roster. And now the A's are getting the athletic version of Geloff back, the one that looked like a future cornerstone a few years ago. And then you've got Jeff McNeil, who's kind of been the connective piece for this lineup. When the A's traded for him in the offseason, it wasn't viewed as some massive move around the league, but internally they needed a vet hitter who could stabilize at bats around all the younger power bats. He's hitting close to 300 again, and the strikeout rate is low like always. He gives them a completely different offensive profile. He shortens innings for pitchers way less than people think, fouls pitches off, puts balls in play, and keeps counts alive, and just makes the lineup harder to navigate overall. And when you've got guys like Kurtz and Langeliers hitting around him, having somebody constantly putting pressure on pitchers and getting traffic on base matters a lot. Rooker's season has been one of the weirder parts of this lineup so far because the production hasn't really matched the quality of the at-bats at times. Pitchers are attacking him completely different now compared to a couple years ago. He's seeing fewer pitches in the zone, a lot more breaking stuff early in counts, and teams are clearly game planning around not letting him get extended. But even through some colder stretches offensively, the raw power still changes games instantly. He's still one of the few hitters in the lineup that can completely flip momentum with one swing, and opposing staffs manage him like it. For a young offense, having a hitter that still demands that level of attention in the middle of the order makes everybody around him harder to pitch to. And then you've got the real Max Muncy. Coming into the year, third base felt completely unsettled for this team. The A's were linked to external upgrades during the offseason, and there really wasn't much certainty about what they were getting offensively from that spot. Now, Muncy's turned into a legitimate contributor. His bat speed has jumped along with his contact quality, and he looks way more comfortable offensively than he did during that rough 2025 season after that broken hand. Even defensively, he's settled in at third better than a lot of people expected. Bobby Crosby's worked with him a ton on slowing the game down, and you can definitely see it. His reactions and the arm strength are a real upside now. For a team built around young position players developing quickly, getting this kind of production from a 23-year-old at third base changes the outlook of the lineup completely. Denzel Clark is still probably the rawest hitter in this core, and you can see that at times offensively. The strikeouts are high, the approach can get aggressive, and the overall production hasn't really been there consistently yet. He's got great speed and defense in center field, and when he does get on base, he puts a lot of pressure on pitchers. He's still developing offensively, but the tools are good enough that the organization clearly believes there's a really high ceiling there if the bat keeps progressing. Now, it's the pitching staff that still feels like the deciding factor for how serious this team actually is in the long term. Luis Severino probably represents that better than anybody. There are starts where he genuinely looks dominant, the fastball still has life, and the slider still misses bats. But then you look at the walks. He currently leads qualified starters in walks, and that's been the biggest issue all season. The command issues have completely shaped his season so far. Hitters are batting around 247 against him, the on-base percentage allowed is near the bottom of qualified starters, and once the walks start piling up, innings get out of control really quickly. That's the frustrating part with Severino right now, because the raw stuff still has flashes. There are innings where the fastball-slider combination looks dominant again, but every outing feels volatile because the command can disappear from inning to inning, and in a ballpark like Sacramento, free base runners usually turn into damage pretty quickly. This isn't the Oakland Coliseum anymore, where foul territory constantly saved pitchers and fly balls died in the air at night. Sacramento plays differently, so even in the starts when Severino's stuff looks pretty strong, the walks keep pushing counts deeper and innings longer. He's still one of the most talented arms on the staff, but if the Athletics are actually going to stay in this division race, Severino's going to have to throw more consistent strikes and start pitching deeper into games. Someone who's been a bit steadier is Jeffrey Springs. He doesn't overpower hitters the same way Severino can, but he's probably been one of the most reliable starters in the rotation overall. The ERA has been strong, and he can change speeds effectively. He's limited to huge innings that can completely shift games. The rest of the rotation ain't half bad either. Jacob Lopez has probably been the shakiest spot in the rotation so far. The swing and miss stuff flashes occasionally, but the command's been a major issue. Too many walks, too much traffic, and a 6+ ERA because innings keep spiraling once hitters get on base. JT Ginn has been a little bit more encouraging. The ERA is solid and the ground ball rate's excellent. Hitters really haven't squared him up consistently. There might be some regression coming based on the underlying numbers, but right now the pitch mix changes and improved contact suppression makes him look like a legitimate major league starter right now. Aaron Savale has quietly been one of the biggest reasons this rotation has stayed afloat. The stuff doesn't overpower anybody, and some of the expected numbers suggest regression could come eventually, but he just keeps navigating innings and keeping runs off the board. A 2.59 ERA through this point in the season is massive for a staff that desperately needed stability behind Severino and Springs. The bullpen's really where the biggest concerns with this roster start showing up, because unlike the lineup where you can point to clear breakout performances, the back end of this pitching staff still feels extremely unstable from game to game. The overall numbers are rough already, a 4.76 bullpen ERA, a whip pushing 1.5, and near the bottom of the league in bullpen WAR. But honestly, even watching the games, it probably feels shakier than those numbers suggest. A lot of this problem comes down to the role construction. The A's brought in veterans like Mark Leiter Jr. and Scott Bartlow, hoping they could stabilize leverage innings, but neither guy has really looked like a true late game option consistently. Bartlow's velocity decline has become a major issue. His fastball has dipped under 90 at times this season after sitting mid-90s earlier in his career, and once that velocity disappeared, the margin for error completely changed. Leiter's stuff still misses bats occasionally, but the command's inconsistent, and when he falls behind in counts, hitters are doing damage quickly. Then you look at some of the younger bullpen arms like Hogan Harris, Elvis Alvarado, and Luis Medina, and the issue becomes walks. The raw stuff flashes, especially with Medina, but there are just too many free base runners right now. And in Sacramento especially, that's a dangerous way to live because one bad fastball can turn an inning upside down immediately. That's why the bullpen innings constantly feel stressful, even in games when the Athletics control early. There are still some interesting pieces here long term. Jack Perkins is probably the highest upside arm in the organization right now, and guys like Brady Basso or Wander Suero could still emerge as useful depth options later in the year. But at the moment, this bullpen still feels like a group trying to survive innings rather than shut down games. And if the Athletics are actually serious about staying in the AL West race over 162 games, the bullpen's probably the area they're going to have to address first. So whether this start is actually sustainable or not, the Athletics are at least finally starting to look like a real major league team again. The lineup has legitimate young talent, a few breakout players are emerging faster than expected, and even with all the pitching concerns, they put themselves right in the middle of the AL West race. And after the last few years, that alone is a pretty massive step forward for this organization. If you enjoyed this kind of video, more analytical MLB breakdowns, player development stuff, team dives, all that, make sure to subscribe and let me know what team or player you want covered next.